Tonight, the lawyer with the Midas touch.
I have a social conscience, but I don't exercise in the courtroom. It has no place in the courtroom. I'm just a lawyer doing his job within the confines of the legal game. That's what I'm doing.
Finding the loopholes to help celebrities in trouble.
They deliberated for about half hour, 45 minutes, and they come and said, Mr. Lynch, you're free to go, and, champagne time.
How courtroom success has brought a business boom.
There are a number of people who simply send these yellow postage sticker on a cheque, signed and not filled in, and actually says, I don't care what it costs, but I want you to defend it for me.
Good evening. 6 months ago, we brought you an exclusive interview with millionaire lawyer Nick Freeman, the man known to the tabloids as Mr. Loophole. He specializes in getting motoring prosecutions thrown out on legal technicalities. As a result, dozens of his celebrity clients succeed in having the charges against them dropped. And the lawyer himself has seen an increase in his wealth and his fame. In the first 6 months of 2005, he fought nearly 100 cases and was successful in every single one of them. Tonight, Jonathan Maitland meets him again to find out whether his incredible winning streak continued to the end of the year.
All I'm doing is, I'm a defence lawyer, I'm putting forward an argument. Nothing more, nothing less. I just try and be a lawyer, and I try and do it to the best of my ability. If you allow your morality to get involved, you couldn't do your job properly.
That was Nick Freeman back in June, speaking as a lawyer, a millionaire and a friend of the famous. When they're in trouble, he's the man they call to get them out of it. And with good reason. Just ask David Beckham. Snooker ace Ronnie O'Sullivan.
He was top drawer A1, and if ever I have any other motoring offences, he's the first person I phone up because I know that he'll sort it for me, really.
EastEnders star Steve McFadden.
His advocacy skills are second to none. He's charming, he's intelligent, he has clarity, and he has a vision and a sense of purpose that nobody else can match. He just knows exactly what he wants and he goes for it and generally gets it.
To the right, that's the way to do it!
Or former England football captain Paul Ince.
I can only relate to it without how I see professional footballers, and I look at, you look at probably Wayne Rooney now, which is up there. I mean, Ronaldinho is the best player in Europe, the best player in the world, and that's how I see Nick in what he does. I think he's the best at what he does, and long live the king.
The celebs may heap on the praise, but not everyone is as impressed with Nick Freeman. His success has made him the scourge of the police and road safety campaigners.
There is an element of worry if you know he's involved in a case. There is an element of, well, there's a very strong chance that he will either get somebody off completely, or he will get them off with a much lesser penalty than they would have ordinarily received.
So we asked back in June, was Nick Freeman guilty of driving a juggernaut through British motoring laws, or simply exposing the failings in a system for his clients to exploit? Whatever the answer, it had made him rich and famous.
Right, this is your wall of fame, yeah?
Yep, it is.
All your celebrity clients?
Most of them.
Now, you're a bit of a celebrity yourself, aren't you? Mr. Loophole, as the tabloids call you.
That's a nickname that I have.
Yeah, do you like that?
Not particularly, no. I don't actually think it reflects what I do. Loophole to me connotes something slightly underhand and devious.
You must enjoy it a bit, though. You would have it on your wall.
What I do is I take advantage of legal niceties and mistakes that the Crown make and use that to my client's advantage.
Right, can we have a roll call of the rich and famous that you've represented?
Well, there's a few here of Dwight, because Dwight's had a few cases, as you can see, about 3 or 4 cases.
Dwight York certainly has, and he also has reason to thank his lawyer, because when the police prosecuted him for speeding, Freeman pointed out that the footballer hadn't signed the form. The result? Case dropped.
Called Lee Ryan, lead singer of Blue. And then going down here, we have Ronnie O'Sullivan, drink driving case. Then Colin Montgomery.
Britain's top golfer, about whom we'll hear more.
Nick Freeman for the defence.
The lawyer first hit the headlines by helping David Beckham escape a driving ban 6 years ago. Beckham, then at Manchester United, was travelling home from a match when he was clocked doing 76 miles an hour in a 50-mile-an-hour zone. He was banned for 8 months, but then Freeman successfully appealed using this argument.
He was being chased by a paparazzi who'd been waiting outside his house, followed him for ages. And it was just that this paparazzi was driving like a maniac. David was very concerned about his own safety on the road and wanted to put some distance between him and this paparazzi. So he accelerated away.
But the court bought that argument that because he was concerned about his safety, he went even faster.
Yeah, which you're entitled to do, legally. If you're in danger, you feel compelled to do something, you're entitled under very limited circumstances to do it.
So he went from getting points, an endorsement and a ban to nothing at all?
Correct.
What's the moral of the story there? Is it if at first you don't succeed, appeal?
I think the moral of the story is for the paparazzi not to put so much pressure on these celebrities.
That case soon made Freeman the lawyer of choice for Premiership footballers in trouble. You've been called Manchester United's best defender.
Well, I have defended a few, yes. I've had several.
Give me some names.
Ferguson, Beckham, Fallen, Dwight York, Jaap Stam's wife, Wayne Rooney, Paul Ince's wife, Laurent Blanc. There have been several. I'm sure I've missed them out.
Right, so you've defended virtually a Manchester United football team's worth of...
Most of them.
...of players and officials.
Schmeichel's son,
right,
who of course plays for City now.
All on driving charges?
Yeah, all on driving, all relatively minor road traffic matters, endorsable offences.
So they must love you here?
Well, I do a reasonable job for them. I do a reasonable job for them.
Do you get a Christmas card from them every year?
I do, yes. Yes, I do. I'm on their Christmas card list.
And defending those Premiership stars has brought a string of other rewards, like the luxury home in Cheshire's soccer and stockbroker belt, plus top-of-the-range motors.
But you can give them to the birds and bees.
Well, my work takes me all over the country. I'm in a different place every day. I'm probably in my car for about an average of 4 hours a day, maybe even more, and I cover between 1,000 and 1,500 miles a week.
And with motoring offences on the increase, the demands on this workaholic's time have continued to rise since the summer. How busy is busy these days?
Well, how busy? 7 days a week? Because obviously he doesn't work all weekend, but he is reading papers at the weekend. You know, he is checking over everything. Yes. Well, any spare time, you know, we have to drag him out for the odd family thing. And, you know, he's quite amenable to that, but any spare time when we don't need him, he'll be in there, sitting, reading papers.
Well, even in the evening when it's kind of family time and TV watching time?
Is it family time in the evening? Ah, right. OK. Yeah, even in the evening, yes, he works.
And he works on holidays, doesn't he?
Well, he always takes papers on holidays, because if he has a week off, by the time he gets back, there's a whole load of papers for him to read through, so he has to have things coming out on holiday, you know, either by email or post, and he reads through things on holiday, yeah. But he'd be bored sitting around doing nothing.
By June this year, his success rate was 100%. Not surprisingly, that record has brought an increase in his own personal caseload. It's still managed from modest offices in Manchester by his business partner and legal clerk, Trevor Howarth.
Certificate of readiness to be completed and served upon the court. The case is now ready for trial.
Known in some legal circles as the Rottweiler, Trevor filters the increasing number of people vying for Freeman's services.
There are a number of people who simply send these yellow postage, we've had several, yellow postage sticker on a cheque, signed and not filled in, and actually says, I don't care what it costs, but I want you to defend it for me. I personally have sent the papers back on the instruction of Nick. Having gone through the evidence, his view is this individual has no prospect at success in defending the case. So it's not the situation of simply banking a cheque and him attending court and saying, these are the arguments, I'll do my best. His view is, unless there's a substantial argument there, he will not take the case to court.
Plenty of cases do make it to court, though, including that of Wolves and former Man United and England star Paul Ince. Soon after our last programme, he was stopped and charged with speeding. But he made sure his first call was to Nick Freeman.
I heard through, the Man United, obviously I've got a few mates still at the club, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that if you are in any trouble as far as speeding, then Nick is the man.
He had reason to feel confident, and not just because of Freeman's successful dealings with his ex-United teammates, because 2 years ago, Ince's wife Claire had also faced a speeding charge. She hired the lawyer who, true to form, spotted a technicality and got her off the hook.
What had happened was a notice had been sent, I think, to Paul as a registered keeper. She'd filled it in saying, yeah, it's me, I was the driver, innocent mistake, and they then proceeded to prosecute her. And I pointed out to the prosecution that they got it wrong. He agreed and the case was dropped.
The result was I got off.
You got away with murder.
I got away with it. I got away.
I think the thing with Nick, I mean, the first thing he always says is not to tell the people when you go into court who's representing you.
Because I had to fax everything,
because he's got such a big reputation, and rightly so. You know, it was like, you know, when you tell them who's representing you, they all kind of go into a little kind of frenzy and all panic up and start rushing around like ants, you know what I mean?
Because actually when we got there, didn't we? We was waiting, it got to 10 o'clock, and a gentleman came out and he said, Claire Ince, and I said, yes. He said, OK, so-and-so court number. He said, is anyone representing you? And Nick had actually told me not to say anything.
That's the first thing he says.
And I thought, well, I can't lie, because I said, yes, Nick Freeman, and he just froze on the spot and said, oh, Nick Freeman of Freeman & Co. Manchester. And I went, yes, he said, thank you. And he just shot, and obviously then they realised that there was maybe going to be a lot more harder work than what they thought. And obviously they were right.
So Claire Ince was out of trouble, but earlier this year, it was her husband's turn to be clocked by the traffic police.
There was no one on the roads. It was after the game, it was 10:30 at night. You know, the roads were pretty clear. And it was a plain car. 2 coppers in there, pulled me over, said you were doing 102, babe, was it? 102. So he said, you got any ID? I said, well, I don't need any, do I? So he said, well, listen, you was doing so much of speed, can you sign this? I said, no, I'm not signing it. You know what I mean? And that was it, basically. So I rang up Nick the next day and told him what had happened, and said, leave it to him.
I think the serious problem that he had was the points on his licence. He was in jeopardy. Once you get up to 12 points, you're in danger of a minimum mandatory period of 12 months off the road.
So when Ince appeared at Guildford Magistrates Court, the odds were stacked against him. Once again, though, his lawyer spotted an opportunity that he was able to exploit.
One of the officers was sick, and the case was on Wednesday. So I said to the prosecutor, when did he go sick? Friday. We make some inquiries, comes back, been sick since Friday. Well, what's he done about it? Who's been told? The prosecution only found out that morning. Now, that's a classic case, isn't it? Of an officer, he's ill, he knows he's due in court, he's got his listing, he knows exactly what he's doing. What has he done? Absolutely nothing. He thinks, well, I'll let them know on Wednesday. So we've come all the way down to deal with the case, the court's assembled, everyone's there, convened for the benefit of this case, at enormous expense to the taxpayer. And this officer hadn't taken the trouble to tell anyone in advance. So
the policeman who was sick and didn't turn up must have known that there was a very good chance that the whole thing would go up in smoke.
Yes, I agree. I agree with you. So one wonders why on earth he didn't do something about it. What does he deserve out of it? He deserves to have the case thrown out, doesn't he? When you're talking about the interest of justice, exactly.
The prosecution asked for the case to be adjourned until the sick officer was well enough to attend court. But Freeman argued that too much valuable court time had already been wasted. And after discussing the matter, the magistrates agreed.
They deliberated for about half hour, 45 minutes, and they came and said, Mr. Ince, you're free to go, and, champagne time. I don't drink champagne, but it was champagne time at a time. The man's done his stuff again. It's like he's going onto a stage, he's going onto a big movie set and he's got to perform. And he walks in, the awe of him, a bit like the way Eric Cantona used to walk into Make United, walk up tall. But when he walks in, people stop talking, and you've just got so much confidence in him. Even if he didn't get me off, I can understand that. It wouldn't, for me, dampen his reputation.
He was ecstatic at being able to drive back. He brought his wife home in the expectation of the possibility of being disqualified. Fortunately, he was able to drive home.
Freeman maintains that it's not lax laws that lead to such acquittals, but sloppy enforcement. If he was in charge of prosecutions, he told me back in June, things would be very different.
I would reduce the acquittals by a massive amount.
What, just by making them go back to the textbooks?
But by proper training, by training the police, by possibly training prosecutors. I mean, there are some very able prosecutors. It's horses for courses. But I think a large part of it is training the police.
But it seems many in the police and in the courts weren't listening, leaving road safety campaigners frustrated and angry.
Nick, obviously, through the work that he does, highlights very effectively where the problems lie in police procedures and in the systems that the Crown Prosecution Service employ. Obviously, they should be looking at every case that they lose and that Nick wins and finding out where they can make improvements in the future, making sure they're prepared for cases and making sure that any loopholes are closed up as soon as possible to make sure that people aren't getting away with dangerous behaviour.
No loophole or courtroom blunder is too small for Freeman to exploit. Remember the case of goalface Colin Montgomery? He was charged with doing 96 miles an hour in a 70 mile an hour zone in his Mercedes. It came to court and the prosecution presented its case. They mentioned seeing the Mercedes being driven at high speed, but they didn't mention the name of the driver or produce any evidence that Colin Montgomery was at the wheel. It was a basic but fundamental error, and Freeman pounced on it.
Yeah, well, the green's over there, actually. Sorry.
Is it?
Yeah.
So what happened with Colin Montgomery then? Because you got him off...
Well, yeah, I got him off on a point that I never expected to get him off. He came into court, sat down, case proceeded, and the Crown simply omitted to adduce any evidence that he was the driver.
But he was the driver?
Yeah, absolutely. We never suggested he wasn't, but of course the Crown have to prove various essential ingredients of their case, and it's up to them.
Yeah.
I think this is me.
But did you feel kind of bad getting him off?
He felt absolutely deliriously happy.
Really?
Yeah, he wasn't guilty, he was found not guilty.
But he was driving, you just admitted it.
Yes, but he wasn't charged with driving, he was charged with speeding.
Amazingly, prosecutors do this time and time again. They present a case, but forget to say the name of the person who was driving. And it was an error that meant that Colin Montgomery kept his licence.
What did he say to you afterwards?
He was very happy, very chuffed, as you'd expect.
Was he chuffed when he saw the bill?
I wasn't there when he opened his post.
Since then, the celebrities have continued to vie for Freeman's services. Just this month, it was the turn of Matthew Vaughan, producer of Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels and director of Layer Cake. He was in court for speeding on the M11, close to the country house that he shares with his supermodel wife, Claudia Schiffer.
I don't know, it's a difficult case. I've got some interesting arguments and we'll just have to see how they go. I'll know better in probably 2 or 3 hours' time.
In fact, it took him just 10 minutes to persuade the court that the evidence was flawed. The police had, apparently, failed to make necessary checks on the device that they used to clock Vaughan's speed. The case was dismissed.
He was recommended to me by probably one of the best lawyers in England in another field, so they're both as good as each other.
Are you happy then?
Yeah, I'm over the moon, I mean, relieved. I need to drive. My wife doesn't drive, so I have to drive.
Is it right that you should get a better chance of acquittal and a better legal service if you pay 30 grand as opposed to 1 grand? It should be available to all, regardless of cost.
In an ideal world, you're right, I'd agree with you. But it is unfortunate, it's the way of the world, isn't it? There's nothing I can do about that. It is just the way of the world. It applies in every walk of life. If you've got a brain tumour and you want a brain surgeon, you'll probably find the best brain surgeons will deal with it privately much more quickly. Is that right? That's a life and death situation. So I agree with you. It probably isn't right, but it is the way of the world and there's nothing I can do to change it.
Victories may be commonplace for Nick Freeman, but the 100% record that he held back in June has now gone. Out of 150 cases this year, he's now lost 6. The result, he believes, of the police tightening up their procedures.
Do you think you've lost your half dozen or so cases because the police have upped their game, having seen the programme?
There's no question the police have got their act together a little more. And of course, the more they do that, the harder it is to win. But it hasn't clearly made a massive impact.
And have people stopped you in the street and said, I recognise you?
Well, not often. Police officers stopped me for speeding, allegedly, recently, and he recognised me.
Really? What, from the programme?
Yeah, from the programme, yeah.
What did he say? You're next?
Well, no, we had a long chat, and then he asked me my name, And I smiled, and he said, "You're Mr. Freeman, aren't you?" And he then went on to compliment me on the job I did. He thought it was fantastic because, in effect, I was training the police officers, making sure they did their job properly. And he said, "The bosses don't do it, and it's great that somebody like you does."
Among Freeman's client list are names that come up time and time again, like Ferguson. In 1999, Sir Alex was charged with driving on the hard shoulder of the motorway, but cleared after Freeman presented evidence that he'd developed sudden stomach trouble during the journey. Since then, he's acted for the United boss's son, Darren, 3 times, the latest court appearance coming just a fortnight ago. The police had accused Ferguson Jr. of driving through a red light, but they had no visual evidence and their paperwork was riddled with errors. So Freeman was able to get the case dropped.
Hello.
Hi, have you finished down Ferguson?
Yep, finished. Believe it or not, I was out of court by 10 to 10.
By 10 to 10?
Yeah. I got about 9:15, had a word with the prosecution. I said, do you want me to tell you what's wrong with your case? He said, well, go on then. I said, well, I'll tell you as long as you agree not to ask for an adjournment. He said, fine, that's okay. So I went through 4 different points with him. I didn't give him all of them, just went through 4. He said, put his hands up, said, right, that's it, I'm offering no evidence. So told the clerk, 10 to 10, case dismissed without the bench, costs out of central funds, and very happy Mr. Ferguson.
His clients may be happy then, but his success worries road safety campaigners. Earlier this year, he successfully defended a woman accused of drink driving for the 3rd time, which didn't exactly make our roads safer, say critics. But for Freeman, making the police stick to proper procedures is a deadly serious business.
Don't you have any social sense of duty about repeat offenders that actually you could help contribute to making, the roads safer by not representing them?
I think I'm exercising my social duty because I'm testing the system. And if you test the system, you're making sure that people abide by the rules. The people who have the power do the job properly. The system needs to be tested.
But you'd be doing more good socially and you'd be making the roads a hell of a lot safer and possibly saving somebody's life if you said to a repeat drink driver, I'm not representing you, rather than catching the police out.
It's not for me, as a lawyer, to make that moral judgment which you're asking me to make. Because if you allow the two to become fused, you're basically saying, look, I'm taking a moral standpoint here, I'm not going to defend you.
Yeah, but you're allowed to have a social conscience.
I have a social conscience, but I don't exercise it in the courtroom. I'm just a lawyer doing his job within the confines of the legal game. That's what I'm doing.
Jonathan Maitland talking to the controversial but highly successful lawyer Nick Freeman. And that's nearly all for tonight. Coming up on Friday,